All right, so now let's talk about the energy of thoughts and how your thoughts and the way your thoughts flow through your mind, they carry energy. It's an energetic flow to it. So a thought is not just it's not just like an abstract idea. It's something that has energy, physical energy. So you could think about it like that. Like we can feel energy. So we have to be careful with our thinking, because the idea is when we're using our brains, we want it to keep flowing. We want the energy to keep flowing. We don't want it to get stuck. When it starts to get stuck, it gets heavy, right? I mean, it's just like overeating or something like that. It's like added weight that we don't need that's unhealthy. So when you can start relating to your mind in that way, and the power of your thinking in that way, you take more responsibility for it. You have to upkeep your thinking. And the idea too with thinking is that you can think things through. I think the best kind of thoughts are thoughts that lead to new thoughts and lead to other thoughts. Okay, thoughts that get you stuck. That's to conclude that that's an unhealthy thinking. So you gotta find a way out of that. And now, oftentimes it seems like, how do you do that, right? So you think, how do you do that? How do you get yourself out of a negative thought? Well, the freedom is in your mind. Okay, so the freedom is in your mind, is in visualizing things, and humor is helpful to try and keep things on the bright side, and look to things that humor you, make you smile, make you laugh. It doesn't have to, not everything for our brains to continue working has to be something that is revolutionary, groundbreaking, or something that is so smart. It doesn't always have to be so smart. The idea of being smart is not about, it's just about having a mind that flows, a brain that works, thinking that works. So you can do something as simple as, I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to visualize a mouse, a white mouse, wearing a pink tutu on a unicycle. And I came up with that. So I came up with that in my mind. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to let it do its thing until it wisps away. Okay? Things like that break up the stagnation of negative thinking. So we have to be very careful about how we use our minds. We have to remember that thinking carries energy to it, right? So if we're thinking about energy, sometimes people they put a lot on emotions are very, very powerful. Emotions are super duper powerful. It's kind of like, they're almost like, easy to recognize. You can feel someone's emotions. If you step into the room, you could feel their emotions. Even if you don't necessarily know what the emotion is, you can feel at least like the energy coming off of it. So you can feel people's emotions. They're very powerful, and almost to the point now where it's like, mostly we've kind of been taught to not deal with our emotions. So in a way that makes us even more emotional people. So emotions are super, everybody just has their emotions all the way out there. That's another thing to think about. But, so we think about emotions as energy, and we think about the emotional expression as energy, but the thought also, and not something that needs to be expressed all the time, has energy. So, just the same way how you can feel, somebody, emotional people, we as emotional people, our emotions are going to affect others. They're going to affect the course of our lives, maybe the course of our day, all that kind of stuff. And it's just easy to kind of like, oh, whatever, like that's your emotions. But the thinking that we don't always express or like really sit down to do consciously, because thinking is something that's kind of happening unconsciously, subconsciously. We're always thinking, or we should always be thinking. So like the intentional thinking, monitoring your thinking, monitoring your thoughts is important. And just because it's silent in sound, right? It's silent in terms of it's not, things aren't being vocalized, but it still has an effect. So the thoughts have energy, your thinking has energy, and it's important. Don't undermine your own thinking and the power of a thought, the power of a positive thought, the power of a negative thought. And like I'll put it like this, like when we're thinking about negative and positive, it's not always about it's more like I would even frame it more like creative and non-creative, productive thoughts, non-productive thoughts. It's kind of more along the lines of, it's not necessarily positive versus negative. So, because, there's things in life that are negative. There's things in the world that are negative, and there's things that are positive, all that kind of stuff. But the idea is that and it's easy, it's okay to recognize those things and to arrive at conclusions that, and to see things. But the idea is that non-productive, thinking or negative thinking creates limitations in your thinking. You hit a wall in your thinking. And that means that your brain is being deprived of light, of food for thought, nutrients for the brain, juices to keep it going. So you got to stay creative, productive, watch your thoughts. That's my message for the day. Peace.